Welcome to Guns and Gear Network, everyone. Appreciate you tuning in. Today we're going to discuss what a great value the police trade-in pistols are. Stay tuned. Welcome back, guys. Appreciate you tuning in. So today we're going to discuss the value that police trade-in type pistols bring. So if you're not familiar with police trade-ins, what happens is agencies do the original purchase for whatever pistol they're going to carry, and then they might carry them for a year, 2 years, 10 years, doesn't really matter. They carry them, and then they're going to need to replace all those. They usually work with some type of distributor level that handles Glock law enforcement, purchases, or SIG or whatever, M&P, Smith & Wesson, whatever they're going to use, and they trade in their old guns for a credit towards their new purchase. So that way they don't have to handle trying to sell them out and get rid of them. So, a wholesaler or whatever can buy them all at one time. It may be 200 pistols, it could be 2,000. And they'll get them in, and then they'll turn around that same wholesaler that did that transaction with that particular agency, and then they resell them to retail agencies that are going to then sell them out. So that's how I've gotten these three police trade-ins. I think they bring a great value. I think there is some collectibility with them in some ways, because some of these pistols that will have department markings. I've seen Chicago police, I've seen different sheriff's offices, and they'll have on the side of it, like I would think it would be cool to have one from LAPD. LAPD's just been known, forever, their history. A lot of TV shows have been made about them, whatever. Or, whatever different agencies that would do the trade-in. And some of them will sell them to their officers. So that's why some of them don't get back out. So especially the ones with the markings on them, it might say, the Idaho State Police or whatever, and they're wanting to, they'll offer those to the officers to buy, and the officers will buy them just for collectible sake for themselves, just to have something that they own and carry on duty. But there are some that get out with those police department markings, and I think some of them will bring a little higher value down the road, years to come, as far as collectability. So none of these have markings that I have here, and I paid anywhere from $199 up to about $350, $375. So you're going to pay a half to a third, roughly, of what they cost new, kind of thing. And they're going to vary in different conditions. So the worst condition one I bought was the $199 one. The vendor that had these has no more, so I'm not going to even mention who it is. But if you search around periodically for just Google search or Yahoo, whatever you use for your search engine, police trade-in pistols, and see what the latest is, because the inventory is always changing, what's in and out of stock with different companies. And there's some companies that kind of specialize in carrying them more often than others. So just kind of keep, once you figure out what those retailers are that kind of specialize in carrying these as often as they can get them, just make sure you check back with them and see what they got. And you can get email notifications, maybe when they have some of this stuff in stock. So this is a Gen 2, and it was $199. This is Department of Corrections. They didn't say which agency or which Department of Corrections, but there could have been at least 1,000 of these things within the Department of Corrections, between probation and parole officers and all these other people that might have these. Then they were dumped back out into the civilian population and allowed for purchase. These were in pretty rough shape. And also the Gen 2s, if I didn't say the right gens, Gen 2, they were known to have thinning areas along where the mag well is, and it would chip. So they disclosed that these are going to be chipped in that area. However, if you look, I've added a mag well. So I took a Dremel and kind of smoothed out. Mine had chipping, and I just kind of smoothed it out a little bit the best I could. And I added this polymer mag well. Now you can't even tell that it was ever chipped. And I like a mag well anyway, so it worked out fine. So this is a Gen 2. It was in pretty rough shape. It had night sights on it. Usually if you get night sights on these, a lot of agencies will upgrade to night sights. They'll be dead. So I think lifespan on most of them in that 8 to 10 year mark. So the 8 to 10 year mark is probably a good mark where agencies will change out. Depends on their budget. Sometimes they'll have surplus budget that they need to get rid of. If not, they lose it. That's the crazy thing about government agencies with their surplus or with their budgets, the way they work. I've seen them where they said, hey man, we got all this money, you know, $50,000 we need to spend, figure out some equipment y'all need or whatever. So they'll just start dumping, buying purchases, trying to eat up that budget, because if not, they lose it, and it is not gained back in the new physical year. So either way, these are in pretty rough shape. They've been carried a long time, obviously, but still perfectly functional. A lot of these are going to see very low round count. So they might have a lot of cosmetic, you know, unsightly kind of things going on, but a lot of times low round count, because most agencies, they qualify once a year. What their usual state requirements are, and it's a lot of times they'll shoot 100 to 200 rounds total. That's kind of getting some practice in, plus their final qualifications, and it's just not a lot of round count. And a lot of officers, believe it or not, are not like firearms people. Like a lot of my guys that watch my videos are firearms people, so they might shoot 200 or 300 rounds a week, where some of these officers are not shooting 200 or 300 rounds a year hardly. So that's the difference. Low round count. So this was a Gen 2, this was a Gen 3 that I purchased. Now I did add this upper slide with the RMR cut, and I've kind of Gucci'd it up a little bit, but this one was in excellent shape when I got it. Had night sights. The night sights were okay. They were still actually functional, and when I added the red dot, so I have an upper now, a slide, that I can get parts and pieces off of, because I bought another complete slide with the RMR cut and added the red dot. So I've added some, like I said, some options on here. This polymer magwell was actually on this firearm, so when I got this pistol in, I wanted to see if the magwell would cover up and fix those issues. So I just left it on here when I took it off of this one. Then I added, I ordered me another one for this pistol. So really nice condition, shoots great, Glock 17 Gen 3. Then I bought this one several years back. This was actually during kind of the apocalypse of gun purchases that everybody was making back in the day. So I bought it at the height of the popularity of everybody buying guns, and I still only paid like $360 for it, I think. And this one was literally like new in the box. If it had ever been shot, yeah, I couldn't hardly tell it. I mean, this one had no holster wear, in excellent condition. I mean, it was just superb. And a lot of these will come with 2 magazines, so kind of pay attention to that. Sometimes they come with 3 magazines, because an officer's issue typically is 3 magazines. 2 on his belt or her, and then 1 in the actual pistol. So a lot of times they'll come with 3 magazines, sometimes they won't. So pay attention to that if you're needing magazines. The 40 caliber you can always get cheaper than the 9mm. There's a reason for that. They're not as popular, and there's a reason for that. They're not as, in my opinion, as good as having the 9mm because of the ammunition availability, the cost, things like that. So if you wanted to buy one and wanted to spend less money, look to the 40 caliber. Of course, all these agencies are going to use 9, 40, or 45. Very little 357 SIG and weird calibers like that. Occasionally back in the day you could find stuff. But there's all kinds of police surplus pistols. Even foreign law enforcement like Italy and places like that, they'll get some of that stuff over here, like the Berettas. When you're buying the Beretta, especially if it's like an Italian police department trade-in, look for the European style mag release, which a lot of time is down here. It's kind of weird, not what we're used to. But a lot of these you can make ambidextrous. This one in particular, I set up for my son. He's left-handed, so I moved the mag release over here, and then it's got the slide release. It is ambidextrous from the factory. So this is one of the original M&Ps, not like the new M&P, I think 2s or whatever. But perfectly good functional firearm with night sights that actually the night sights work fine. They were actually like new. So whatever agency had this, it saw very little or no use. But also, with that said, you're going to find holsters on the secondary market. Same thing. The agency might have carried Glocks. Now they're switching to SIG or Smith & Wesson or whatever. And they sell off their holsters. So, like this one is an old Safari Land that I've cut out. When I bought it, this was not cut out. And so I cut it to be able to accommodate my red dot. So That's a modification that you can do. I've talked about that modification before, to be able to accommodate a red dot without buying another holster. With that said, this is not a police trade-in. This is my Mac 9 DS, and it fits in that holster just fine. I did a video about that, actually. Fits just perfect, and I've actually got it loosened and set up more for this one than the Glock now. But yeah, great holsters. Safariland makes excellent stuff. So just keep it in mind. So let's just assume for a minute, because a lot of these, I just sent a buddy of mine a link to some Safariland holsters, and I found them as cheap as about 35, 40 bucks. So with this pistol, I could have gotten, now I would have bought a Safariland that didn't obviously need the light, because this one, Gen 2s didn't have the rail for the light. So when you're purchasing these, if little things like that's important to you, if you say, hey, $200 for a Glock, and you buy it and then you get it and you realize, oh, it don't have the rail, you'd be disappointed. So pay attention to little details like that. If there's something that you're wanting or whatever. But I could have literally bought the pistol and a Safariland holster for around 250 bucks. Say call it 260 or 270 total out the door with a nice quality Safariland holster and a pistol, because the mag well, if you want to include that, that's like 12 bucks on eBay. They're not expensive. So like I said, $270, let's say, that's tax, transfer, shipping, FFL transfer, all that. For a nice duty style weapon, holster setup, whatever. So keep an eye out, guys. A lot of good value out there in these police trade-ins, and I think there is some collectability if you can tie them back to an agency with the agency logos, and that sometimes they'll put like a little mini badge up here, and on the side they'll put, you know, LAPD or whatever. So if you can find some of those, I think you're going to pay usually a little bit of a premium for those. But not nothing crazy. It's not going to be like the cost of a new Glock. So you're still getting a good value there because of that. But I think down the road, some collectability potentially with it. Depends on the agency. You know, if it's just some podunk town in Idaho, probably not. But again, if you find some that are pretty significantly well-known police departments, Atlanta PD or Las Vegas, Los Angeles, those type stuff, Nevada, you know, something pretty prominent, Dallas PD, whatever. Yeah, probably be somewhat collectible a little bit down the road. Some people seek out law enforcement collection items, whether it be badges and guns and things like that. So, yeah, there's a collectability for that, too, in that market. But anyway, guys, appreciate you tuning in. If you're not familiar with police trade-ins, check them out. Start researching them, and I think they'll offer you a good value, especially new pistol buyers that are trying to look for that value item, not sure what they want to buy and didn't want to spend. You can buy stuff that you actually know that is in police service, that they trust with their lives, a good quality pistol over maybe a no-name, I won't say no-name, but a lesser-known brand. So you can get something Glock, Smith & Wesson, SIG, Beretta, those type names that is common in law enforcement and military use. But anyway, guys, appreciate you tuning in. If you got any questions, post those below. If you got any experience with police trade-ins, kind of chime in and talk about that with what maybe you've bought or seen in the marketplace. But anyway, guys, appreciate you tuning in. As always, like, share, and subscribe. Bring another video shortly. Have a great day.